Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and my team selection video for Game Week 3. Game Week 2 has passed, we've gone through 2 game weeks now and it's looking okay for me. I've had a decent start to FPL. I'm ranked at about 2 million in the world, which is not too bad after 2 game weeks, I guess. Could have been better. I have some picks that I have not been too fond of, but I have some choices, especially the fact that I started the season with both Salah and Haaland seems like a good decision in my opinion. But let's go through what happened in Game Week 2 before we go into my free hit draft from last week and see how that did compared to my Game Week 2 squad. Then we're going to look into a free hit squad for Game Week 3. And then finally, we're going to look into my plans for Game Week 3 as well, if I have any at all when it comes to transfers. But you'll get to see eventually. But starting with Game Week 2, I got 72 points, which is okay. I think this average score was like 68, so just about average, and most of that was down to Haaland being my captain. I did not go with a triple captaincy chip. I did think that I could save it for later on in the season, but obviously if I could do it again, I would obviously use the triple captaincy chip because 17 points from Haaland is more than you can expect from a triple captain usually. I know 2 seasons ago I used it on Rashford, who got 20 points in a double game week, so that was even better. So that might happen again, but most of you guys that used triple captain now, or all of you guys that use triple captain, should be really happy with the score. I don't think there's going to be a really popular triple captaincy option later on in the season that's going to score more than that. So congrats to all of you guys, but I'm happy that I at least had him and I was able to captain him, just as I was for Game Week 1 when I had and captained Salah for his 14 points times 2, which was 28 points in Game Week 1. So Salah and Haaland doing most of the work for my team, but I have some issues as well. Obviously you can see the bench. Konsa and Barco were already kind of big issues leading into Game Week 2, and now this week I also got another issue with Nkunku, who played the last like 5 minutes of the game and just does not look like a sure starter for Chelsea, who absolutely destroyed Wolverhampton. So really, yeah, I'd say unlucky, or I don't know, something with the pick of Nkunku, because I felt like he was the second most talented player, or perhaps even the most talented offensive player at Chelsea. Next to Palmer, but he just isn't getting favored right now from Enzo Maresca. Maybe that's down to Pochettino buying him, or was it even Pochettino? It might have been even before that, but maybe Maresca just prefers to use the players that he has brought in Pedro Neto, for example. But Madueke played, got a hat-trick. In a different world, maybe it is Nkunku that plays and gets a hat-trick, but Nkunku's been a dud, and next to Kwanzaa and Barco and Valdemar Son, to be fair. He's going to be on the bench of shame because I haven't really changed him out either yet, but we'll get to that eventually when we look at my squad for Game Week 3. When it comes to Game Week 2 as well, obviously Haaland and Salah I mentioned already. 34 points from Haaland as my captain, 10 points from Salah as my vice captain, 2 bonus points again from Salah. It's really nice to see him being a bonus points machine currently. The same can be said for Anthony Robinson, who all of a sudden got 2 bonus points rather than 1, so he ended up with 7 points. So he was actually my biggest, like, for anyone that was looking for Kwanzaa replacements last week, Robinson was the player that I had as the player that I liked the most going forward, especially. But he also did provide goods against Leicester with a nice assist. Even though they conceded, he ended up with 7 points, so it's really nice from him. And then Ben White got 6 points as well. When it comes to more letdowns, I have the Crystal Palace players. Crystal Palace just haven't looked as good as I expected them from the start of the season, but they have faced Brentford and West Ham, who are 2 teams that are better than what we expect, I think. So Henderson, once again, didn't keep a clean sheet. SA, once again, looked really lively. Once again, had several big chances and created some big chances as well, but just couldn't get anything on the board, basically. So 2 points for him. Another success story for me, actually, was Antoine Semenyo, who should have had more points than 5 as well, because he was super lively. Had a couple of shots that almost went in from far out. Had some really nice assist possibilities. He had an assist after all, so he got 5 points at least, but it could have been a lot more. But I really like what I see from Semenyo. Really happy that I have him, and I think he's a really sneaky good option for anyone of you looking to sell Nkunku currently. So that's part of the reason why, just spoilers a bit for what I'm thinking with Nkunku. I already have Semenyo and Rodgers. I basically have the players, and Muniz for that matter. I already have the players that I would be interested in bringing in for Nkunku for like a price drop. Semenyo is one of them, Rodgers is one of them, like I said, and Muniz sort of like a stand-in for Emil Smith-Rowe. I don't think I would have double Fulham attack, so I don't think I would bring in Smith-Rowe for that reason, because I think Muniz might actually outscore him eventually, even though that hasn't been the case so far. But speaking of Muniz, he got 2 points again, looked really close to scoring, had another chance where it was a cross from Robinson that he easily could have scored on. He headed it just wide. That would have been a massive point boost for me as well with both Robinson and Muniz, so happy about that. And then the final striker is Isak, who's been pretty disappointing. He had an assist in the first game against Southampton, but Newcastle had to play with 10 men. Didn't look too good in that game. And then against Bournemouth as well. Bournemouth, I think Newcastle started the game better, and then Bournemouth just took over and were the better team. So Isak, again, pretty far away from scoring, but we know Isak is going to be the starting striker and playing 90 minutes mostly for Newcastle. He's also on penalties, and Newcastle are still a really good team offensively. And I think they're going to make some changes for Game Week 3 and Game Week 4. So I think Isak is also someone that you should probably keep calm with and stick with for another game week, potentially even 2, or potentially even more than that as well. But I feel like if you have some really nice moves that you can do, if you can sell Isak to get Salah, for example, for next game week, then maybe you should do it. But other than that, I think Isak is someone that you should keep as well. But obviously disappointing so far. Rodgers on my bench. He's the one good bench player that I had. Didn't get any points, but he looked absolutely amazing against Arsenal. Might not lead to FPL points. That's the one issue potentially with him, but he is 5.0 and he looks so lively and he looks pretty nailed. And he was actually a pretty good goal scorer as well at points last season. So I think Rodgers is still a really, really good pick. And it sort of solves the problem with Nkunku for me, because if it wasn't for Nkunku being out this game week and being like not much of an option, I would have had a major benching headache for Game Week 3, which we'll get to eventually. But yeah, 72 points on my Game Week 2 score. Not the worst, not the best. Pretty happy-ish so far with my season. I wish I had gotten more points, especially from SM and East, who I feel like have been better than what they have gotten so far in terms of points. And Isak, I guess, is a bit of a disappointment, but he's in most squads anyway. So yeah, let's move on to my free hit draft for Game Week 2. This is the draft that I presented to you guys last week in my team selection video for Game Week 2. And it ended up being a pretty nice score, actually. So let's take a look at it. So it actually ended up getting 90 points, which I'm really happy with. Some of it is sort of lucky, I guess, because Solanke, when I picked this, he was ready to play against Everton. And I think if he had started against Everton, he would have had a really nice score as well. But he was obviously injured. He had to be subbed off. And my first bench player was Robinson, who got 7 points. So really happy with that. But other than that, obviously I had Hall on captain. I think that was pretty simple choice last week. But I also had Palmer as well in my free hit draft, because I saw Palmer being a really good option, and he is someone that I would really like to have currently in my own team as well. Not just based off of Game Week 2, but just what we saw last season, and just the fact that we don't have that Chelsea cover that we thought we had in Nkunku now. I think Palmer is looking like a much better option than we thought before the start of the season, which is partly down to just not remembering that he was actually the highest scoring player last season and actually is worth that type of money. But yeah, we were all blinded by Nkunku, I guess. But I'm happy that I picked him in the free hit draft at least. I also picked Diogo Jota, who got 6 points. I think he could have gotten even more, and I think he looks like a really good option. But the newest news now is the fact that Federico Chiesa is going to Liverpool for some reason. I don't understand it. Liverpool have so many faults in their team, so many like positions, or at least a couple positions where I think they should do something, especially like center back, midfielder, defensive midfielder especially. Those are weakness points for their team. But for some reason, they just keep bringing in more and more wingers, more and more strikers that can play in the top 3 positions, basically. I don't really understand it, because now it's going to be Chiesa, Jota, Gakpo, Darwin, Salah. I forgot someone as well, Luis Diaz. They just have so many options offensively, so I don't really understand why they're bringing in Chiesa. But that's going to be a bit of a detriment to Diogo Jota, but at least for last week I had him. But he looked really good. Could have had more points than 6, but ended up getting 6 points at least with an assist and the clean sheet there. Mitoma as well, 6 points from him. Wasn't as good in Game Week 2 as he looked in Game Week 1, so I wish he could have done even better, but at least he got some points on the board with 6 points. Pedro Porro with 6 points as well from a clean sheet, which is surprising from a Spurs defender. And Trent as well, Alexander-Arnold, who could have had a lot more points on top of it next to Jota. I think both those guys were really unlucky not to get more points. Then we have Lewis, who I think was, as you can see, he was my favorite differential last week. He was super close to scoring, and that would have been a really nice goal for him and anyone that brought him in last week. And obviously, playing as Ipswich, you expected him and Ederson, who I have in goal, to keep a clean sheet, but Ipswich had that one big chance early on in the game where they sort of shocked Chelsea, or shocked City, and scored. So I think they were unlucky to concede as well. So overall, 90 points is obviously amazing, but I think it could have been even better if the City guys had provided the goods, and also the Liverpool guys could have had more points. And Eze Muniz, like I mentioned already as well. I think Even though the team got 90 points, it was sort of hard done by. But another thing that I'm trying to do this season that I haven't done before is trying to, or last season is actually when I started doing the free hit drafts a bit later on in the season. But from this season, since I'm starting for Game Week 1, doing a free hit draft every single week, I'm going to try to add up all the scores that I've gotten from the free hit drafts and see how that compares to my own team. So currently, with the Game Week 1 score that I had, so I didn't make a free hit draft actually for Game Week 1. So I just used the score that I had for my own team in Game Week 1 and added with the 90 points this week. I got 69 points in Game Week 1 and I got 90 points now. That would mean 159 points on my free hit team so far this season, which would have been an overall rank of 403,000, which is obviously really, really nice. So yeah, I'm going to check in on that every single game week, obviously, to see how my free hit drafts for the entirety of the season would compare to everyone else, including my own team. So currently it has about a 1.5 million lead in terms of overall rank. And what is it? 14 points, I think. I think I have 144 points myself. But yeah, bit of a plus there for... no, I got 72 points, so it is 18 points ahead of my own team, actually. 141 points I do have. So yeah, I'm going to keep track of that all season, and I'm going to do a free hit draft basically all season as well. I already do the wildcard draft every single week, so I might as well do the free hit draft as well every single week for anyone that is looking to free hit in any particular game week. But as we move on to the Game Week 3 suggestion for my free hit draft, again, I don't think you should use your free hit chip now. I don't really think there's any reason for it. You can use transfers, you can use wildcard even. Before you should use a free hit, I think it's better saved for later on in the season. We don't really know what's going to happen yet towards the end of the season. So I don't think free hitting is a smart idea this week. But if you for some reason are looking to do it this week, then I think this is the team that I would go with. These are the players I think will have the best scores in Game Week 3 basically. So let's start in goal with Mark Flecken. I think Southampton at home is by far the easiest fixture when it comes to keeping a clean sheet. Southampton didn't score in the first game. They didn't score in the second game. So I'm going to think that I think that trend is going to continue against Brentford. So I think Flecken is actually a pretty good goalkeeper. And we also have Valdemarson as a backup just in case something happens with Flecken and he's like sick or something like that. That could happen sometimes. So we were pretty secure with the Brentford goalkeeper there. In defense, I have Gabriel Magalhaes from Arsenal. I just like Arsenal's defense. They're playing at home. Even though it is against Brighton, who are a pretty good offensive team, I think Gabriel is a pretty good option. I'm obviously a huge fan of Gabriel. I sort of wish I had him rather than Ben White so far this season, but that's what happens sometimes. I think Ben White just had more attacking potential and was more nailed than Gabriel with all the new centre-backs and stuff coming into Arsenal. But for this one game week, we know Gabriel is going to start most likely, and I think he is a pretty good option against Brighton. Then once again, we've gone with Rico Lewis. I think he's going to start for City once again. And City against West Ham, as we'll get to with the other two City players there, usually tend to do really well. I think Lewis has just looked amazing so far. He hasn't really gotten any points to prove it. He has blanked basically, or he got a clean sheet in the first game, I guess. But he could have had a lot more points last week, like I mentioned with the free draft for Game Week 2. But this week, I think he has another big chance. He is really attacking, plays for the best team in the league, basically, the reigning champions. And I think Lewis is just a great pick for 4.5, really a huge steal until he loses his place. And I still think he'll keep his place because he's played 90 minutes in both games so far, I think. So that's really good signs for Lewis and his playing time going forward. Finally, we have Robinson as well. My favorite player this season, I guess. He has looked really good. It was close to getting bonus points if he had kept the clean sheet in Game Week 1. He got bonus points despite not keeping a clean sheet in Game Week 2 because he got an assist because he's super offensive, super attacking. It's a really nice fixture in Ipswich away, so Robinson is a pretty easy pick. Then in midfield, I go with Palmer again. I think Palmer has looked amazing playing against Crystal Palace, who have struggled a bit defensively, still haven't been able to replace Joachim Andersen in defense there. So I think Palmer is going to be a pretty good option as well. Then we have Phil Foden, who has been the forgotten man so far this season. He didn't play much in Game Week 1. He came on as a substitute. And then Game Week 2, when we thought he was going to be back potentially in the starting lineup, he was sick and not ready to play. But now he is fully fit, I think. There's no indication that he's still sick. I think he's going to be back in the squad. I think he's going to be ready to start. Probably against West Ham, and he has such a good track record against West Ham. He always destroys West Ham, so I think Foden's going to be a really sneaky good pick this week, and no one's going to have him. So if you're looking for like a 1 week punt, if you're wildcarding in Game Week 4, for example, and you have enough money in the bank to have someone like Foden, I think that's a pretty tasty differential. But there's another differential that I like even more, and that is going to be Brian Mbeumo from Brentford, playing in Southampton at home. The best fixture of the lot, I think. Here, probably even with Ipswich away. I think that's the best fixture. And Mbeumo, he's on penalties. Ivan Toney is still on his way to leave Brentford, it seems. I think Mbeumo is going to be a really, really nice pick. Obviously, he has tough fixtures in Game Week 4 and Game Week 5, but that doesn't matter for the free hit draft. It's for one game week only, but even if you want to bring him in for this game week and have him for the long haul, I think he's going to be a really good option. He's proven all the time that without Toney, he is pretty much essential for that price at 7.0. I think essential is a word that is probably used too much, I guess, in FPL circles, especially for me as well. But I think he is a really, really, really nice option for 7.0 if Toney leaves, and that is looking really likely. And Mbeumo's looked good so far. He's on penalties, obviously. He's super attacking. He plays as a striker sometimes. And Southampton at home, I think you just need to have him if you're free hitting this game week for some reason. Likewise, Semenyo, like I mentioned, I have him in my team, and I think he's looked really lively so far. Everton have been absolutely stinky defensively, and Bournemouth tend to score a lot of goals against Everton regardless anyway. So I think Semenyo is going to be having his huge comeback this game week, or not comeback because he scored in both game weeks so far in terms of getting points. But I think this is going to be his huge scoreline where he gets a goal and assist or something like that and actually gets put on the map properly. I've seen a couple people mention him as a potential replacement for Nkunku and stuff, but most people are going for the likes of Smith Rowe and Rodgers instead. So I think Semenyo is overlooked, and I think he's going to be a really good player against Everton this game week. Then the captain is going to be Haaland. He is always super, super good against West Ham. Remember last season when a lot of people went with Son as captain rather than Haaland captain against West Ham, and Haaland ended up getting 1 goal, so some captainers got away with it, but Haaland had like 5 or 6 big chances, I think, that game, and just wasted them. So I think, and then he scored a brace, I think, in the second game against West Ham later that season. So maybe it will change now that David Moyes is not the manager for West Ham anymore, but West Ham still are trying to get the new players back into the fold in the Premier League under Julian Lopetegui. So I think Haaland has a really good chance of getting another huge score in Game Week 3. So I think he's pretty much the best captaincy option this week, even though Palmer has a decent chance against Crystal Palace at home as well. But Haaland, he's my captain. I think he's going to be, again, the highest scoring player this game week. He wasn't that last week, to be fair, because that was Madueke, but yeah, he was one of the highest scoring players last game week with 17 points. Might not get that much this time around, but he's going to get at least a goal, probably even 2 in this game week. As a central forward as well, we have Ollie Watkins for Aston Villa. I think he was really unlucky not to score, or partly unlucky and partly just like kind of wasteful to not score against Arsenal. But he's getting in great positions at least. He's getting in better and better fitness for Aston Villa. And they're playing Leicester away, which is a really nice fixture. Finally, Aston Villa got a properly easy fixture to play. And I think Watkins is going to pay dividends straight away. So I think Watkins is a really good option this week as well. For that reason, like I said, Leicester away, Watkins has a proven track record. He was the highest scoring forward last season. And I think this is also his chance to shine. I think potentially Game Week 3 was when they beat Brighton like 6-1 last season, and he had like 4 goals and an assist or something like that. So yeah, he could have another massive haul, Watkins. Then finally we have Muniz. Again, I'm not going to give up on Muniz. I think he has been hard done by so far, especially in Game Week 2. And I think against Ipswich, who are playing at home as well, I think Ipswich are going to try to attack, try to win a game. Finally, Ipswich actually have a chance to win a game because they faced Liverpool and Man City so far. I think they're going to be super attacking. I think that's going to open up a lot of things for the likes of Muniz and Smith Rowe. So I think the Fulham attackers can be really good this week. And obviously, the Fulham defender in Robinson as well, I have a lot of faith in. So yeah, Muniz finalizes the starting 11. On my bench, I mentioned Malmerson as well earlier as the backup for Flecken. I also have Destiny Udogie against Newcastle. I think Udogie has just been overlooked a bit. He hasn't really scored anything so far, except for keeping a clean sheet, but he's super attacking and he could easily score a goal or something. Against Newcastle, they have looked really frail defensively and haven't really looked that good offensively either. So I think Udogie is a really nice first option on the bench. Also have Kostan Nedeljkovic from Aston Villa playing against Leicester. I think that's a really good fixture. So for the cheapest possible price there, I think he's the best 4.0 option this week. And I also think the best 4.5 option in midfield is going to be Irag Bunam from Everton. He's playing pretty much 90 minutes every game now for Everton, which surprised me at least. And he's kind of more attack. He was actually more attacking than both Ganage and Doucouré last game. Where he was more offensively minded in terms of his average positioning that game. So he could potentially score, I guess, in a game that is usually high scoring between Everton and Bournemouth. So he's my third bench player for that reason. That's pretty much the team for this week. It is worth 99.7 in terms of team value, so everyone should be able to afford it. And I have 5 out of these 15 players myself. And that is Robinson, Semenyo, Haaland, Muniz, and then finally Valdemarson on the bench as well. So that's the team. Favorite differentials are Watkins in attack, and Mbeumo in midfield, and Lewis again in defense. I think Lewis finally has to come good now, probably, but I'm obviously not hoping for that as a West Ham fan, but I think Lewis is looking pretty good currently. Moving on to my current plans for Game Week 3, and once again, I am actually looking to do no transfers. As you can see, the one change that I've done is sub out Nkunku and start Rodgers. I feel like my starting 11 is just more than good enough to play well this game week. Obviously, my goalkeeper isn't ideal with Chelsea away for Henderson. Chelsea just scored 6 goals, but I think goalkeeper transfers are kind of a waste, and I don't want to use a transfer on that just because Henderson has a bad game. It could easily be one of those games where Henderson, for some reason, keeps a clean sheet and gets a lot of saves and stuff. It could always happen, I guess. But I really like my starting 11, so I don't really have any transfer plans so far. The one thing that I have thought about is potentially getting in Trent Alexander-Arnold, because I think it just looks absolutely amazing. And I think Man United are going to try to keep it tight at the back and try to just keep a clean sheet and potentially get a 0-0 game here as well. So there could be some clean sheet potential for Trent, could be some attacking potential. What I'm actually looking to do is get in Trent for Game Week 4, obviously, when he has easier matches. But I could potentially go a week early and do it now. And the way I'd fund Trent transfer would be to sell Ben White, who plays Brighton, which is a decent game. I had Gabriel in my free hit draft for a reason, because I think Arsenal are good defensively. But at the same time, it's Brighton. It's easy for Arsenal to concede, and Arsenal haven't really looked that confident or that good defensively so far this season, I think. So I could potentially do White to Trent, but I still would need money to do that. And the way to get that money is to sell Nkunku, who is sort of the biggest or the most expensive asset that I have, who is someone that is worth swapping out. So I would do Nkunku to Minte. I have mentioned that I wouldn't go with Smith Rowe because I have Muniz. And the other thing that I have is that I have 7 really good attackers that I don't want to bench. I don't want to bench either of them. I don't want to bench Isak. I don't want to bench Semenyo. Don't want to bench Muniz. Don't want to bench Rodgers. Or Eze, Salah, or Haaland for that matter. So I would bring in Minte a week early because Brighton have really good fixtures in Game Week 4 and Game Week 5. But for Game Week 3, he has Arsenal away, so I would just keep him benched. And I would start Trent rather than Ben White, obviously. Those are my potential transfers. I think I'm going to just stick with no transfers. I have 3 transfers next week and potentially do like a bigger squad rotation. Potentially even also use my wildcard and then have the 3 free transfers from Game Week 5 onwards as well. And just have like an advantage from that point on. It's also something that I could potentially do. But yeah, currently leaning towards no transfers or just doing the double transfer of Nkunku down to Minte, who has looked good, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sure about his playing time going forward with all the new signings for Brighton. And then Ben White to Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is also kind of risky. I think I'm going to try to get Trent in Game Week 4 without sacrificing Ben White or Guardiola, potentially upgrading Kwanzaa if I can get money somehow, potentially selling Isak in Game Week 4. But we'll see what happens in Game Week 4. But most likely, I'm going to do no transfers and stick with the team that I have now. And I'm just going to go through the team pretty quickly. Henderson in goal, Chelsea away, not the best fixture, but yeah, it's a goalkeeper. What can you do? There's not really a standout goalkeeper so far. Ben White against Brighton, I think he could easily get some points there. I think he has gotten points against Brighton in the past, if I'm not mistaken, from assists and goals and stuff, so he could be good in that department again. Maybe they keep another kind of lucky clean sheet like they have been doing so far this season, Arsenal. I think Ben White is a pretty good option. That's why I'm also kind of hesitant to sell him. Guardiola hasn't been as attacking as I wanted him to be, mostly because Lewis has been playing, but at the same time, he plays for Man City against West Ham. I'm expecting him to keep a clean sheet, most likely. But maybe West Ham will score because West Ham have so many good defensive players. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Guardiola there. Robinson obviously was in my free draft. I already talked about him. Same goes for Semenyo, who's also in my free draft, and Muniz as well, and Haaland as well. I don't really have to talk about them. I did that in the free hit draft section. Rogers, I'm really happy to have him be able to bring him into the squad now. He's looked really lively in the first 2 games, hasn't gotten any returns, but he's gotten a lot of eyeballs on him now and a lot of transfers in as well. So he could finally provide the goods now that most people have brought him in, which is kind of sad since I had him from the start, but at the same time, he looks just like a better and more secure pick now, so I understand why people went without him from the start of the season and now are bringing him in because he looks really, really good. SA against Chelsea away, I think Chelsea are there for the taking offensively at least. We saw Wolverhampton score 2 goals and had another goal disallowed. He had another couple chances there as well. SA looked absolutely amazing again in the cup game against Norwich, so I think he has a decent chance of getting more points again in this game week, but the time is sort of running out for SA as well. He is someone that I could potentially also sell to get some cash. Him and Nkunku are potentially players that I can sell and then upgrade Trent for that money, I guess. Then we have Salah against Man United. I didn't have him in the free hit draft, but I think he could easily bang in that game as well, like he has done in the past. Salah has proven time and time again that he can score against Man United, and he can easily do it again this time, even though Man United have a better squad now. But we saw Man United against Brighton that they are susceptible defensively, and we've seen Liverpool so far be really, really good, so I think Salah's a really good option as well this week. Then we have Isak against Spurs. Last season against Spurs, he was absolutely phenomenal, scored 2 goals, destroyed Van de Ven, who was his matchup from Spurs there. And I think that could potentially happen again. Isak is sort of the same as SA. Time is sort of running out. They sort of have to start to perform before, or unless I might, or if they don't, basically, I might have to sell them. But I'm going to give him this chance as well because I think Isak is still a tremendous player. He just hasn't really gotten to show it so far this season. The bench, better to be left unsaid. Valdemar Son, Nkunku, Kwanzaa, Barco. It's just a who's who of players that you have and I have made mistakes with this season. So yeah, that is basically the bench of shame, and I want to get rid of all those guys. But as far as my starting lineup goes, I'm pretty happy with that. My bench, not so much, but it doesn't really matter that much either because I'm not going to start them this week, and I'm going to sell them potentially when I get the chance in the upcoming few game weeks. But those are my plans for Game Week 3. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed this channel, and I hope you have subscribed if you haven't already. Getting more and more subscribers now, which is really nice to see. Getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. So if you could subscribe and help me in that regard, that would be of great help. If you're already subscribed, you could also obviously like the video, which would help me in the algorithm, get me more views and stuff. Always happy to see that, and I have gotten some pretty good views so far this season. It's a bit of a step up from last season as well, which is really nice to see, so that gives me more motivation to do even more videos going forward. But my plans now are pretty much going to London. It's an international break after Game Week 3 anyway, so I'm going to have the week off, the first week leading into the international break weekend, but then leading into Game Week 4 I'll be back with more content for you guys, so I hope you look forward to that, and I hope to see you again later on. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching. Bye-bye. See you next time. And good night, good morning, good evening, whatever the time is when you're watching this. Bye-bye.